Insights channel here. Steve here again. You know, I'd like to talk more about the Antichrist, because I know a lot of people have different theories about where the Antichrist comes from, how does he emerge, how does he become the most popular leader the world has had, or the most charismatic. There's many questions we all have about the Antichrist, and I'm convinced that the best description of him is in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion. I think that's a that chapter is such a good description about the Antichrist. But I was also trying to think on a bigger scale, because people tell me, yeah, but you can't just think that the Antichrist comes out of Russia, because surely Russia and China, they're all part of this globalist game. You could be right, those who say that. But let's look at it from a different angle. Yes, it's true that every country is materialistic. Every country worships mammon. Every country largely follows Satan already. So what's the difference? How can you suddenly get an emerging new power, as I've suggested? I suggested in my last audio about the Antichrist that he's going to come out of Russia according to Ezekiel 38:39. But you might ask the question, what's the difference? Why should somebody stand up for good when all the rulers so far that we see in the West, most of them, they don't stand for the people. They stand for power, stand for money, stand for mammon, the lot of them. And he says, could there be any nation on earth that's different? Is Russia any different? Is China any different? Actually, if you study these other countries, you can only come up with the conclusion of people are individuals. I think that's the key in the situation with Antichrist. People are individuals. We know that the whole world lies in darkness, as scriptures say. But it looks to me that though the same powers, maybe they control Russia, maybe they control China, because they control through money. That's how they get in, through mammon. But I also feel, and I wrote this some years ago in a discourse I wrote called Mr. Nice Guy, that I think even the world powers that exist right now, I think they're going to come to the conclusion eventually that it's not working the way they're doing it. And I know, well, they try different methods. If one method doesn't work, try another. And I'm convinced it will be the case that they're going to come to the conclusion, look, force and pushing people around and war and destruction is not working. Most people are against what we're doing. They didn't work for them what they planned a few years ago. You know what the shenanigans they were up to just a few years ago. That didn't work. And then they had the war in Ukraine, and that hasn't worked. Practically, the Ukraine's been annihilated, basically, by the Russians. Now they've got this new thing in Israel, try and stir up the nations. But I think they've got to come up with some wiser plan. If they really want to dominate the scene, if they really want to rule, now when I'm talking not about politics. We know the world is run by Satan and his demonic powers. But I'm convinced that it's always been the same. I believe that Satan has been allowed to have 7 empires until it's his time is over. Starting with Egypt, then Assyria, then Babylon, then Medo-Persia, then Greece, then Rome. Finally, the Antichrist, and that's according to Daniel 7. Finally, the last fling of Satan will be in the Antichrist, his son, before he gets yucked in the great lockup of the bottomless pit. But in answer to other people's questions, isn't Russia also just the same? Run by bankers and mammon and evil spirits. Of course it is. And of course I know these guys all have counsel. I'll take it further. I'll tell you something even deeper. Did you know a lot of these people, like Putin, and like these leaders of the world, Biden, do you know that they actually go to the Antarctic? And the Antarctic, if you know, the Earth is hollow. The holes in the poles and all that. Do you know that these leaders, they go down to the Antarctic for secret meetings? Who do you suppose they have secret meetings with if it isn't Satan himself? Well, God of the underworld. Oh yeah. You look it up, you'll find out. So, of course, we know who's coordinating everything. It's coordinated by Satan himself. What's Satan's ultimate goal? Destruction of the planet. Destruction of God's creation. Destruction of everything. Satan knows he can't win. Therefore, if he's going to go down, he's going to take everybody else with him. That's pretty much where Satan's at. But he tries different tricks, and he has done a lot through history to destroy, as you saw at the time of the flood. Only 8 souls survived. Satan almost won. He almost won. Almost destroyed everything. Fortunately, God had 8 souls he rescued. And then, of course, 200 years after that, you had the Tower of Babel. The devils were taken over again in the form of the giants, who were the disembodied spirits of the giants. And after Babel, I got revelation 5 years ago that God called Satan on the mat after the Tower of Babel. He said, look, I'm very angry with you because this is just total lawlessness like it was happening before the flood. You can't do that anymore. From now on, you have to be a law and order man. You might do all your shenanigans and all the stuff you do, all that rot, but you have to be a law and order man, and it cannot be total lawlessness. Anything goes, no laws, no control. There has to be control. There has to be laws. There has to be order. There has to be right and wrong. It can't be as the lawless days before the flood. And that's what was revealed to me. And since that day, that's what did Satan do? Then after the Tower of Babel, then he came up with the Egyptian power, which was totally satanic as well. And then after I had Assyria and Babylon. And I mentioned recently, what was it that defeated these powers? God had warned Satan, you can't be totally lawless all the time. You can't get to that stage. Now you might say to me, yeah, but we've had plenty of lawlessness on this planet. It's true, but it's normally sporadic, or it's in one area or the other. Of course, you could question that with, say, the Second World War. You had a lot of lawlessness all over the planet, almost. But it wasn't total disorder. It wasn't total confusion. I don't think any of us have any idea how awful it was before the Great Flood. I don't think we have any idea in modern times how terrible it really was. In fact, you only know how awful it was if you study the Apocrypha books. That's why I've studied them, and I've written the Insights books, because then you can see how lawless it really was. It was not only lawless, but you had monsters roaming the planet and giants. It was a very dangerous place to be in pre-flood times. Big question is, are we headed back that direction because of these same entities, these same beings, these same devils and demons that were the giants? Is that where the world's going? It looks like the world is trying to go all the time in a more lawless direction. But I think that what happened is, yes, I would agree with those who said that, about Russia. Yes, what it is there are those powers, there are those spirits everywhere of mammon and worship and bankers and all these people, all they care about is money, and they're given over to evil spirits. Yes, of course it's true. But people are individuals. And if you study history, for example, let's talk about the Grecian Empire. If you study Alexander the Great, how did he start off? If you study even Adolf Hitler, how did he start off? What about Napoleon? You'll find they all started with some good idea, and they were the only one who was willing to stand up for the people. They were the only ones willing to stand up and fight the status quo and defeat it. And therefore I think the Antichrist is going to be, I think he's known by the status quo. He's known by the powers that be maybe totally been trained by him, but he sees them as stupid, old, out of date, and he wants the people to like him. I mean, you think how stupid these people are, like Klaus Schwab and the Economic Forum and the UN are and the World Health Organization, all these people, how stupid they really are. And the things they say, it's just out of total arrogance. There's no regard there for the people. But they're never going to win that way. But if you know how Satan really is, he wants to be king of the world. How are you going to be king of the world and going to clobber everybody all the time and only say bad things to everybody and threaten them with, you shall own nothing and eat bugs? Like that stupid Klaus Schwab is supposed to represent the rich of the World Economic Forum. These people are incredibly insane, totally mad. But the Antichrist is going to be a total different kettle of fish. He's going to see the needs of the people, and he's going to desire to take away the oppression of the very rich, and he's obviously going to fight some wars, according to the book of Daniel, where he defeats the rich, the powerful, probably the United States, Israel, UK, some others. In fact, Daniel 7 seems to indicate that 3 of the horns, of the 10 horns that come out of the old Roman Empire, are ripped out by the roots, and I would suggest that's probably the UK, United States, and Israel are going to get ripped up by the roots. If you rip somebody up by the roots, like a tree or something, it's dead. Now, whether that's talking about politics only, and leaders, and just those with all the money, maybe it's talking about the merchants, maybe it's talking about those who run a country. I'm hoping the Antichrist have enough sense to see that. They don't destroy the people of any given nation. They have nothing to do with it. Get those who are causing all the trouble, and who are arrogant and are proud and think they're so good, and everybody else is a bunch of cockroaches. Get those who are guilty and responsible. Take them out. That's what the Antichrist has got to do. And I think that's exactly what will happen. We also know, for example, even if the Antichrist does come out of Russia, you read more there in Ezekiel 38 and 39, and you'll find out that as time goes by, he gets trouble from his own country. He gets the king of the north coming against him, and the king of the south coming in the time of the end. That's actually in the book of Daniel says that. So he's an individual. The Antichrist is an individual, and he even says eventually he shall come to his end and none shall help him. There's a description of the Antichrist right at the end. So he's an individual, he's charismatic, he's going to be the most popular leader the world's ever had, surpassing Hitler and Alexander the Great and the Caesars, surpass all of them. Because he will be Satan himself, but he'll also have a hypnotic side to him. A real hypnotic, evil, very evil, hypnotic side to him. That's what I see in the Antichrist. But I honestly believe that, yes, he could come out of Russia. Even if some of you are saying, yeah, but Russia's also given over to the same powers, isn't it? Of bankers and the elite and globalists, isn't it? They're all part of the same thing. You know, I was just studying about China yesterday, and I was shocked to see how their top people of China are. The way they talk is terrible. They talk the same way like Netanyahu does, talking about how we're right and everybody else is wrong, and if we have to kill men, women and children, we will do. So you see, these powers, doesn't matter where they're from, they have no regard for human life the way it is at the moment. Whether it's China, I can't speak for Russia, because Russia used to be really bad under Soviet communism, of which Putin used to be the head of the KGB. But nevertheless, people do change. But I think the argument people put forth is, well, how could this charismatic Antichrist come on the scene in the midst of a very controlled world where all the nations are controlled by money and power, and nobody says anything out of line or out of place unless it's allowed by the controllers or the globalists. I know it's a good argument, I understand that. I still think you will see a charismatic individual come out of Russia who initially everybody will embrace, especially the people. And you've got to see through history that when the rulers see that all the people went after him and they could do nothing about it. There's a case with Jesus, for example. The Pharisees could do nothing. Did you know the Pharisees and the Sadducees were not just religious people? They were the main political parties of the time of Jesus. They were powerful. So if you have a charismatic leader like Christ, or even the Antichrist, who comes along and the powers that be think, well, this could serve our purpose, well, he can bring the people over onto our side. How many times have you heard something like that before? You know, it reminds me of that movie Zorro, when a big merchant went away to Europe and came back again there to South America, and he starts talking to the people and saying what a bad lot the rich barons are there. And the baron said, why were you saying that to the people? He says, I was just playing to the crowd. I think that's exactly how it'll be with the Antichrist. The powers that be, they think they're going to use him, but he totally takes over them and the world through satanic power, because he's on a higher echelon than even they are. He's a son of Satan, and that's how he can do it. It's by total spiritual power the Antichrist takes over eventually. He sneaks in, I think he fights a few wars according to the book of Daniel, overcomes some powers, and then look what it says in the book of Revelation. Who's able to make war with him? Sounds like he's already destroyed somebody, put some big power out of business. Who is it? Is it the United States? And Britain? Or the West? What's he done? Because I'll tell you something, Antichrist can't come and make a peace back down in Israel with a third temple unless he has the authority to do so, and nobody can stop him. Well, we know by Revelation 13 it says, who's able to make war with him? Obviously somebody tried and lost, whether that's the United States or the West or combined with Israel. Maybe they lose some wars to Russia or to China or something. But obviously something big has to happen before the fulfillment of the Antichrist making a peace pact in Israel of 7 years. Something has to change. Besides, we don't even have a third temple built in Israel yet. But anyway, the Bible's a very exciting book. It's got a lot of exciting stuff in there about the Antichrist. I'm not reading any Bible verses today because I happen to be lying down resting right now. But I will. I'll come up with another class showing you all the verses there are about the Antichrist, because it's a very fascinating topic. But as some have asked, yeah, but how can such a character come on the scene in a world like this? It's such a dangerous world where you'll get a bullet in your head or a missile if you don't watch it. I know. But when you realize it's a spiritual thing, the powers that be on one level, the Antichrist is on a higher echelon of Satanism, right under Satan himself. And that's why it can happen. Oh, come on, it's not difficult for Satan. Satan has strings to everything of this world, every country, every bit of politics and economics and everything. He's got his hand in all of it, of course he has. All he has to do is put in somebody smarter than the lot of them, such as his son, the Antichrist. Comes in peaceably, wins the whole world by being charismatic. How else is he going to persuade everybody to take the mark of the beast and worship the inner beast and end up worshipping him as God? He must put on some pretty spectacular display. Some say it's going to be seeming invasion by space, from space, UFOs and advanced technology. Maybe. It's probably true, because if something's scientific, people will accept it, but if it's supernatural, they don't accept it. That's how most people are. So I think it's true. Satan's son, the Antichrist, have to put on a big show. Something like that. Invasion from outer space. I don't know how he's going to do it. But somehow or other, things are going to change. Things are not going to stay the way they are with the same old West ruling the world. That will not continue much longer. Then you shall see him whose coming is after working with Satan, with all deceivableness, unrighteousness, and them that perish. You know the rest of that chapter. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, and I'd like to encourage people to get my Insights books. Got 8 Insights books and 2 on the supernatural paranormal, out of the bottomless pit, 1 and 2. But do get the Insights books because they cover what's missing. A lot of what's missing, which was in the King James Bible until 1885 but was taken out, plus the incredible Hebrew books of Enoch, Jasher, Jubilees, and the rest of them were in the King James Bible until 1885. So, well, thanks for listening. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.